Hey everyone, I'm Jeff from Payntr, and this is the Payntr X006 RS spiked golf shoe. Now before we get into the review, if you are new here and you do like the video, please take a second, hit that subscribe button, hit the like button if you do like the video. It all helps the channel massively. Now let's talk about these. If you haven't heard of Payntr before and you haven't seen my other review, essentially Payntr started out as a cricket footwear company and have now made the jump into golf shoes. So they're relatively new to the golf shoe market, but what they do is focus very much on performance in the golf shoe. So you'll see a lot of tech in a way, which is in these shoes specifically with the intention of helping golfers get the most out of their swing. So swing faster, be more stable, be more balanced. All of that with the intention to help golfers play better golf. In a nutshell, what these are a winter golf shoe option from Payntr. And by that I mean they've got a little bit more insulation, a little more padding to keep your foot warm, great weatherproofing to keep your foot dry, and then they've got your traditional soft spike grip to it for additional traction. So we'll have a quick rundown of the tech specs and then we'll get into the good and the bad. But to start off with, just so you know, they currently retail on the Payntr website for £139.99. You can get them in white or black, so two pretty standard options. Obviously, with it being winter, I've kind of leaned towards the black for actual use, but I do have the pair of the whites because when it comes to kind of out of winter, I think it's a really good option still. Just to add, from a sizing perspective, they do run slightly narrow. So if you do have a wide foot, you might want to consider going half a size or even a size up. It's kind of a theme throughout Payntr golf shoes. Maybe one of their failings, but it's not something I've really struggled with. I do find that they fit relatively true to size, but I've been told, and a lot of people have said to me, that they think half a size gives you that little bit of wiggle room. Jumping into the tech specs, there are a lot of things going on, like I've already said, in this shoe. And they're all designed and all intended to help you either swing faster, be more stable, be more comfortable. So let's talk about them. First up, the upper layer of this shoe is made from what's called Chlorino microfiber, which is it's kind of like a leather alternative, except that it's a little bit more flexible and a little bit more lightweight than leather. So you see it on a lot of other golf shoes as well, but you also see it in kind of track and hiking shoes. Whilst it has that same kind of versatility as leather, it is that little bit more lightweight and breathable, which I think for a shoe like this is a great idea. The tongue is also made from the same kind of material, so it's got this kind of breathability, but also a slight stretch to it, so it helps to lock in your foot a little bit better and be a little bit more comfortable around the kind of the bridge of your foot. The whole of the outside of the shoe is also covered in what's called a never wet, super hydrophobic solution. So the shoe itself is water resistant, very, very water resistant. It doesn't quite cross the line into waterproof. Again, if you've seen my last video, you'll know that the guys at Payntr were quite clear to say that they can't call it waterproof, but that's more because of the legal ramifications rather than actually being waterproof, because of the hurdles you have to jump through. So it is incredibly water resistant, verging on waterproof, but we're not allowed to call it that. The insole is made from this open cell foam, which is designed not to compress or to compress incredibly small amounts over the lifetime of use. So in theory, the comfort and the cushioning that you get from the shoe shouldn't change over the lifetime of the shoe. The midsole is made up of this dual density PMX foam, which is intended to offer kind of maximum energy return, but also a load of comfort. As well as that, the shoe has this foot plate running through it, which is designed and intended to help golfers kind of better harness ground forces in their swing and essentially swing faster. On the bottom of the shoe we have a TPU foot plate with what Payntr are calling their fast twist insertion system, which is supposed to help with traction. And then added to that they have the Soft Spikes Torflex Pro spikes, so top of the line soft spikes, which again just adds more traction in the shoe. So all in all, there should be a whole lot of grip going on here. So like I say, there is a lot going on in this golf shoe. But the real question is, does it make for a good golf shoe? And I think the short answer is yes, to be completely honest. But it's not without its faults. So let's talk about it more generally. Starting with the comfort, it is unquestionably an incredibly comfortable shoe. Between the lightweight, relatively breathable upper layer, the open cell foam insole, and then the, again, cushioned midsole with that footplate in it to add a bit of stability, it is a pleasure to walk in. There's no question about it. Obviously, that is all subject to your sizing. And like I said at the top of this video, sizing can be a little bit off. So if you do have a wider foot, maybe go for half size up. That will make the world of difference, because ultimately you don't want a shoe which is squeezing your foot when you're walking 4 or 5 hours, hopefully closer to 4. So top marks for comfort. There are a few downsides, well, one in particular, which I will get on, but otherwise almost faultless. Then in terms of the grip, again, I can't really fault it. I do feel it's quite difficult to go wrong when you've got the soft spikes like they do, especially for winter grip. It does just offer that kind of element of all-terrain to a golf shoe. And if you've seen my review of the X001F, you'll know that the spikeless version of these shoes is amazing, to be completely frank. And the X006 RS have an element of that spikeless grip to them, which again just lends itself to a little bit more grip all around. I've had absolutely no issues with the grip, and I have pushed it to its limits. I've been walking through some of the boggiest conditions I've ever played in. I've had no issues. Just to throw in as well, because the grip is that good, it means that you don't have to worry about losing performance from the shoe. So that foot plate, the traction, all of this tech which is in the shoe to help you swing faster, be more stable, it's all built on the fact that you have good grip, which I think, regardless of whether you're playing in relatively boggy conditions like I have been, or whether you're on a mat, which maybe is a little bit slippery, it all helps to make sure that you are still getting the best out of the shoe that you possibly can be, which I think is a real testament to how they've designed the shoe. The weatherproofing actually might be the thing that lets this shoe down a little bit. And not because it's not good, it's actually brilliant. But because the shoe itself is definitely geared more towards winter conditions, especially in the UK, you would expect a shoe to be waterproof for the winter because of how wet and how muddy it's going to get. So not being able to call it waterproof does almost add this little bit of creeping doubt to whether or not it is sufficient. But I can say, having tested this to its limits, it is sufficient, it is good. I would add to that, whilst I've had absolutely no leaks on the shoe, there are a few aspects of the shoe which I think don't lend itself to that kind of more robust weatherproofing, which do slightly let it down. But we'll touch on that in a second. So whilst overall they are great shoes, like I've already kind of alluded to, there are a few slight negatives, slight downfalls to it. One of which is the sizing, but that's a relatively easy one to overcome because you just go half a size up, or even if your foot is massive, go maybe a size up, and it shouldn't be a problem. But in the same vein, on the kind of comfort side of things, what I have found recently is the inside of the heel of one of my shoes is starting to, so the fabric is starting to come loose, and it's causing a little bit of rubbing on my heel. And that might just be a me problem, that might have been how I've been wearing them, and I've been wearing them a lot. So like I say, they've been put through the ringer. However, it could start to cause an issue. And especially if I start wearing thinner socks, then the rubbing's going to get worse. The only other issue I've found is with the weatherproofing, or the design of the shoe as it leads to weatherproofing. Don't get me wrong, the actual weatherproofing of the shoe is fantastic. However, I have found a few kind of gaps, I guess, for want of a better term. And it's in the way the shoe's been designed. So when you look at the shoe, you see down on the tongue, there are these two little slots just here. And when you tighten up the shoe across the bridge of your foot, they leave a bit of a gap in the shoe itself, in between the tongue and the outer layer. And because the tongue isn't connected inside the shoe all the way down, those little gaps at the kind of the ridge of your foot do have the potential to let in a little bit of water. And I've definitely found that every now and then, if you're going through thick grass, thick, wet, rough, drops can get in. Like, it's not an area of your foot that you need to be worried about, really. when you're going out on the course. But if it's, really pouring down with rain, or if you're walking through really long rough and it is soaking wet, dripping down your feet, then it might become an issue. And I have only once, maybe twice, experienced this, but it is a slight flaw in the weatherproofing of the golf shoe. But having said that, it's not enough for me to say that these aren't really good in wet conditions. Don't get me wrong, they're not up there with the most waterproof golf shoes that you can find. If you look at some of these, like the boots that Nike and Adidas have produced over the years, which are designed solely for wet weather experiences, it's not on that level. But it will keep your foot dry, it will keep your foot warm as well, whilst being lightweight and breathable and flexible. So I think it's a good middle ground for a winter golf shoe. Finally, the pricing of it actually puts it in quite an odd category. It's not quite as expensive as some of the top-end waterproof shoes from the likes of FootJoy and Nike, but it's also a little bit more expensive than the more entry-level waterproof or water-resistant shoes from most manufacturers. So it's an interesting one. I would say this leans more towards the top end in terms of the performance of the shoe. So it's probably competing more with the Tour Alpha-esque golf shoes than it is with anything a bit more bottom-endy or kind of entry-level. It is definitely also worth throwing in there that it's not just my opinion that this is a very good golf shoe. It was also voted as, I think, the 3rd best spiked golf shoe on the market this year by MyGolfSpy. So take that as you will. I think this is a fantastic golf shoe. Yes, it does have a few downfalls, a few areas of maybe where it could be doing better, but all in all, I think as a package it does what it needs to do incredibly well. If you are looking for a golf shoe to get you through the winter, or even through the spring and then maybe even into the summer, because it is that little bit more lightweight and breathable than a lot of winter golf shoes, check out the X006 RS. Really do think it's a great option for anyone. Anyway, that is all from me. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you found it a little bit informative. If you did, please hit that like button and consider subscribing, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers guys.